this is like, this is like, okay, where do we start? And so it was this like, it was kind of like ignorance on fire. And there is a saying that, that I do agree with, is sometimes ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. And meaning, like, sometimes we can get to the point where we just think we know it all, but we don't take any action. Our fears overwhelm us. I was definitely the ignorance on fire, but I would drive my partner nuts because like I had no organized plan of how I was going to execute everything and do everything, and so and nothing really ever worked properly, or got executed as well as it could have. We would get some things done, but it was what I would call organized chaos. And then throughout that, that frustration of like spending a lot of money, getting some good results, but like wanting to really take it to the next level. I actually came across this concept of what I preach and coach and train on all the time now. It's called the flywheel sales funnel, and essentially what it is, it's putting your database at the core of your marketing and your sales strategy, and making sure that you're focusing equally on your marketing, your sales, and your service. And the whole idea is to add value at every point, and it's a very value based approach, and then making sure we're getting really good testimonials and referrals, and then they feed the flywheel. If you don't know what a flywheel is, look it up. It's actually a mechanism that creates energy. And most businesses don't build that way. They're very transactional based. Most realtors are not taught to think long term. They're taught to think about the next transaction. Most team leaders, when they're recruiting, they're not thinking about okay, it's not just enough to recruit somebody, but I have to retain them, delight them, and make them a raving fan. So they want to bring other referrals in and build that culture of continuing that continuous flywheel type of mindset. And so it's not just with buyers and sellers, it's also with our agent attraction. And it was at that point that I had my personal breakthrough, because I was the cold caller. I was the person that would pound the phone, get a transaction, but I had no systems in place, and I had no sales and marketing in place. And so once I learned about this methodology, what I did is me and my partner, we organized all of our thoughts, and we looked at what we needed to do every single day, every single week, every single month, every single quarter, and we mapped it out. And we just came up with a process to execute against that. And as simple as that sounds, that brought our business from like doing okay to doing over 151 transactions our first year. From that point, we integrated that system, and then from there we scaled a team of over 200 real estate professionals, launched a broker-to-broker referral program, literally doing thousands of transactions through the broker-to-broker referral program. And through that, I've learned 3 giant mistakes that I want to make sure that this audience doesn't make. Through that whole process, I've spent, just to put some context, I've spent probably about $15 million on lead generation. $15 million on lead generation over the past 12 years. And I spent probably about $25 million on lead conversion, and so the marketing and the sales process, in other words. So I've made some mistakes, right? Does that make sense, ladies? I think we've all made some mistakes. So are we? Do we want to dive into it, or Sarah? I don't want to get ahead of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what we're here for today. So yeah,
Okay.
dive right in. Go for it.
Yeah, and I do want to make a mention. I do want to make a mention that I really want to make a point to talk about this. And then Isaiah, you know our systems so well that, and you know that I know our systems because I go into that stuff. I really want to kind of connect for any realtor that's watching this, thinking about joining Amplified. We're not just talking about the mistakes that you made and how you could fix them. We're talking about how the brokerage helps you grow in your business. So if we can make that connection for them somehow, just know that that's kind of our intention.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you've put these systems in. What I'm going to go over, what I'm going to go over here is the systems that prevent you from making mistakes you've adopted. And so I'll make sure that I kind of highlight that, because I know some things that you've really built built into your business. So the first thing is not actually knowing how many leads you need to generate to hit your transaction goal. And this sounds simple, but almost everybody that I coach and train or start off and I talk with, or when agents join our team, because we're still in the real estate business as well, and they join our team, they actually don't know how many leads they need to generate to hit their transaction goal. And so I want you to think about this. I want you to think about saying, I want to go to Hawaii. Or let's use something. Actually, I just got back from a road trip down to Skaneateles. It's a local lake, right? And but so I want to go to Skaneateles, but what if I have no roadmap, or I put a blindfold on, and I want you to imagine me driving in a car blindfolded. How well would that work out?
Not well.
No.
I might make it out of my driveway, right? Maybe onto the main road, but then after that, it's going to be dead. It's going to be bad. It's going to be deadly. And so it's the same thing when it comes to like when we set a transaction goal of saying we want to do 100 transactions or whatever the number is. If we set that goal, but we don't know how many leads we need to hit that goal, it's like me putting the blindfold on, getting in my truck, and then driving on the road and expecting to get to a destination without crashing. You're destined to crash.
Right.
So, and so one of the things that I want to, that if you're, any team that you're joining, any brokerage that you're joining, they should be really helping you manage through that process and helping you figure out what those numbers look like. And then figuring out what lead sources you should be attacking and going after that work based on your talents, your skills, and your budget. And that's something I know that your mentorship program, you guys do a really good job of, is making sure that you're customizing a plan, a marketing and sales plan to the agent. And this is one of the things I want to throw out there. No lead generation program is the same for every agent. It's going to be different, right? So when I first, people are like, well, Isaiah, if you did so good at for sale by owners and expires and cold calling, how come you barely train on that? Well, the reason why I only train on that a little bit of the time, because that's only for one segment of realtors, right? That's not for everybody. So having a diversified lead generation strategy within knowing how many leads that you need is equally as important. And literally that could be costing 20, 30, 40, 50 grand a month just by not getting this right. So I can dive a little bit further into this for those of you that are, watching and listening. Here's how I break it down. I break it down in the core 4 that I believe everybody needs to have operating as your primary lead generation sources. And I know that, Justine, you guys coach and train to this really, really well. And focus on it based on our last conversation. This has become a focus of you. But my first question is, how good of a job on a scale of 1 to 10 is this audience doing marketing and staying in touch with your sphere of influence, marketing to your sphere of influence, and adding value to your sphere of influence? That's so common. And we all think that we're supposed to know it. But if you dig underneath the hood, I have this AI tool that I could actually cover your sphere of influence with, and I could tell you how many people moved or are getting ready to move, and it would shock you in your sphere. And so that's like rule number 1 is like, before you do anything else, unless you're not from the area and you don't know anybody, right? There's nothing else the number 1 thing has to be get my 100 names, my 200 names, organize them, put them in list, and making sure I have a methodical marketing and sales plan to reach out to them consistently and add value to their life consistently. Justine, I think you're going to say something. Yeah.
Isaiah, I do want to say, I kind of had a breakthrough a little bit with an agent recently, and I would love your take on it really quick. Is when we say that, right? When you and I say, how well are we doing? There is an understanding between us being in the business for a million years where we're like, oh, we know, but it's like a 7, right? Or an 8 or a 9 or whatever it is. I asked a new agent that they'd been in the business for 2 years. I was like, well, how well do you think you're doing? Just scale. She was like, what's 1 and what's 2 and what's 3 and what's 4? And I was like, I don't even know if I ever even thought to ask myself that question. I just had a feeling, if you will. So if you were to say 10 out of 10, I know that I'm doing well with follow-up and giving helpful resources. What is that, right? What's a 10 out of 10?
Yeah, so a 10 out of 10 is where you have a multi-channel touch program through personal contact, educational materials, and it's done on a specific sequence methodically over a long period of time, not over a week or a month, but over a long period of time. That would be a 10. So let's just say, for us, we try to make sure there's 50 touches in some way, shape, or form per year through multiple channels, with a personal outreach once a quarter. So that touch program is different for everybody, but do you have a marketing and sales plan for your sphere of influence? Is it consistently getting executed, and have you done it for a long period of time? That's how you'd score a 10, and it's looking different for everybody. So for an example, I have one of my clients I'm coaching one-on-one right now. She loves baking. Now this, I'm not something I would ever do, but it's like, I thought it was a phenomenal idea. So what she does is she actually records herself and goes live on Facebook and shows people her process of baking different types of really cool bread. And she gets all of these people like watching her as she's like all messy and powder's flying everywhere and like all of this stuff, baking the bread, and she's drawing everybody in. And then she gets everybody excited because if she knows them or connects with them on social media, or they're in her sphere of influence, she actually has a cadence of which she actually gives them free, her free bread. And she actually goes and does that on a quarterly basis. And so her whole sphere of influence, right, looks forward to this. And she's growing her whole audience and stays in touch with her whole audience based on a passion of hers. And she gets so many transactions out of that one strategy. Now, that's not the only thing she does. She does other things to add value. That's not something I would ever do. But the point is like, what's authentic to you? What can you connect with people, and what can you humanize in a world where people are starving to have relationships with people? They're starving for people that are real, that they can feel like they can connect with and be part of a community. People are starving for it. So Justine, that was a long answer to your question, but like that's the answer. Is like, it's like whatever program you come up with, are you doing it consistently over a long period of time?
Yeah. And I think the key thing is what you just ended with too, is like, you think that you're bothering people, or you think that maybe you are bothering people and you're not giving them helpful resources. But if you're really doing something intentionally over a long period of time, they want it. They're starving for it. They want that information. Even this live right now, like I know multiple people who wanted this information. So whether we get 0 views or 1 million, the right people have to watch it.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yep. I love it. Yeah, the other thing behind that kind of goes into what we're talking about is organic content. Content is the fuel to your lead generation machine. Content is fuel to it. So people see this as this passive thing that I might do, and I say that you're starving your child. If you don't do content, you're starving your child. Well, what's your child? Well, your business is a baby. If you're watching this, and you're less, I want you to think of your business like human years. Like, if you have a business that's 1 year old, you are raising a 1-year-old. like your business is not even 1 year old. And if you don't pay attention to it and nurture it the right way, something bad could happen to that 1-year-old. Right? How many people know 1-year-olds are vulnerable, right? And so And then the same thing when your business is 2 years old and 3 years old. And so when you think of your business in the terms of human years, it also puts things in a perspective that allows you to be able to know where you're at and what you need to focus on. Because my son at 13 years old, there's different things. He's more independent. He's more established. There's things that he can do. But if I would have treated him like I treat him when he was 3, he might be dead. Right? So the big thing, especially with a new business, is what are you feeding your business? Like, organic content is everything. And so, and that's the way people connect with you nowadays, because there's going to be only a certain amount of people that want to pick up the phone and talk to you. And I'm not saying you don't do those things, but how are you staying in touch in between? Right. And so that's why I suggest a video once a week, taking that video, the concept of that weekly video, and then creating shorter clips from that video, whether you shoot them separately or use a tool like Opus Clip to like clip them. And then you consistently put that content out there along with a really value-added email. And right there, you're going to be doing more than 90% of everybody else is doing, just by being consistent with that. Next one is paid ads. So are you paying for leads? And then the last one is cold outreach. Do you have a geographical farm that you're nurturing? I believe that everybody in real estate should be nurturing a geographical farm. Everybody. Because that geographical farm will actually become an extension of your community, an extension of your database. It doesn't start out that way, but as you nurture it and grow it over time, it's not a cold market anymore. Now it becomes a warm market, and it's an extension of your database. And so that's what I call the core four: your sphere of influence, your organic content to generate leads off of social media, paid ads, and your cold outreach. And between that core four, you should have a really good, you should have enough leads coming in to hit your transaction goal. So Justine, how well do you think this audience knows how to actually know how many leads they need to generate to hit a transaction goal? Should we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I think that it's also important to note that if you haven't done it right, if you don't know what your transaction goal means to your everyday work, that yes, let's talk about it. But also, like, $100,000 is a lot easier to say, right? 200.
I want to make $100,000.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to say. And, I even, as far as our trackers that we use within the brokerage, right? Everybody's got their income goal and it's calculated by that, So I don't think that they know what it would take to even figure out the amount, as well as, do you know what that work means to you? We can all say 100. It's a lot easier to say it than it is to do it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important to know what leads convert at, so you can know what's a realistic transaction goal. So like if you put together, for an example, a list of 100 people in your sphere or 200 people in your sphere, if you nurture them the right way, you should have a 7 to 15% conversion / referral rate from those leads. So as that grows, that should get bigger and bigger every year. So that's the core of what I suggest everybody does their transaction goal off of, is by how many people they plan on nurturing in their sphere. And using that 7 to 15% conversion number based on how many people they plan on nurturing in their sphere. And then from there, that gives you like an idea of how you're going to fill in the gap. Because let's say that you have 100 people and 100 people in your sphere. Okay, well, that's 7 contracts, or that's 7 closings. And let's say my goal is 25. Well, how the hell am I going to fill in the gap? And now I have to pick 3 to 5 other lead generation strategies, whether I'm going to pay for leads, whether I'm going to nurture a geo farm, I'm going to cold call, FSBOs and expireds. But I gotta fill in that gap. And now if I know what those convert at, so for example, for sale by owners and expireds, if you have 100 of those and you're working 100 of those convert around 2 to 5%. And then paid ads, like that you purchased about the same. And so now I can take my blindfold off. Sarah, we took our blindfold off.
Yes.
Right? So now we can actually get to the destination and we can drive, because we're not just hoping and praying and wishing that we hit a transaction goal. So mistake number one is just not having enough leads to hit your transaction goal, and not even knowing how many leads you need. So you guys have any thoughts on that or comments on that before I go to mistake number two?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. So I was going to just say that was a really great learning experience for me my first year. I had a very lofty goal of what I wanted to earn and what I thought real estate was going to be. And I started we have a tracker and it's all broken down with our analytics of how to do it. And once I got into it, I realized, oh my God, what was I thinking? I think it's great to have big goals and big dreams and work towards it for sure. But I also feel like realistically, I needed to scale it back quite a bit in order to reach, a goals and build a business and really get a clear picture of what it entailed as a whole. There's just so much more to it, and it takes a lot, and it's also can be a long game, as you know. So that was really a huge learning curve for me in my first year. I'm really happy to have learned that. It made a world of difference understanding that, for sure.
Yeah, and I think if anything, it probably helps you gain a focus, and when you have focus, you're more powerful when you go to execute. At least that's how it is for me. When you can see in front of you what you actually have to do. Did it help you do that? Did it help you gain a level of focus and understanding, and maybe for some people, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like you have with that direction almost brings a little bit more confidence with the direction. Or why don't you speak to that a little bit, Sarah? I'd love for you to comment on that. Oh, I think she froze.
That's okay. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry about that. My internet is not the best.
That's okay.
So bear with me here. But it did put it into perspective. Once I kind of, because we do have the mentorship program. So,
Yep.
And we went through phases, and there's just so many different avenues to it, with geofarming, sphere of influence, and then also setting up, learning to set up my CRM.
Yes.
So everything is flowing and organized and tagged and everything correctly. And the amount of time and energy it takes into investing in that,
yes,
to then further grow it in the right way, in the right fashion. Just getting into it, I was oblivious to how almost detailed I had to be and focused I had to be on kind of the little work behind the scenes, versus just some dollar amount goal I was trying to earn. It ended up helping me realize all of this energy and the little detailed work for every sort of funnel, for every, tagged different,
Yeah.
whether it's a listing, a buyer, what have you, having to just do it all, get it all organized to then kind of grow, and grow the right way. It was kind of mind blowing, really, but I'm glad
but
I learned it.
coming through the other side of it is now you have a database that can scale and that you can grow and you can build this, and you have this foundation that most people will never have, especially early on in their business. Nobody taught me that stuff. And that's why you got to be with the right brokerage, that they're not just teaching you how to do a transaction. If you're with a brokerage that's not teaching you how to do marketing and sales the right way in 2025, what anybody can teach you how to do a transaction.
Yeah, I will say too, as someone who's been doing this since 2016, and even just joining, partnering up with Isaiah and really starting to track everything, the clarity around Because I always tell everyone, well, it's a roller coaster. Oh, I would tell my team all the time, yeah, it's just a roller coaster. You just got to keep going. You just got to keep going. Yeah, we can do this. We can do that. But really tracking it and really seeing what is going on, even when I was quote unquote failing, the anxiety wasn't really there anymore because I was like, it's right in front of me.
Right.
I can clearly see where I'm failing. All I need to do is X, Y, and Z. Right. So I think that if you're watching this, right, if the audience is watching this and they're like, they're talking about stuff like I'm a very successful realtor, all as well. And you could probably be a millionaire if you tracked things and did things methodically. And that's really what I'm trying to attract. And I'm trying to teach people is, as a top producing agent, I still lead by example and stay on top of all of my stuff.
Yeah. And the one of my favorite quotes, Peter Drucker, he's a multi-billionaire. He says that which is tracked will excel. That which you ignore will slowly die. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was really interesting perspective because if you think about that in our own personal lives, right? Like how long, like if you don't track the pulse of your relationship with your spouse, you don't have a check-in with the relationship of your spouse, how well is that relationship going to work out over the long haul, right? If you don't have any sort of system and process in place to track, whether, to track like what you're doing with your workout, anything that we're going to be successful at, we have to build a system in place and the people, process, and tools around that to be successful. And those are the fundamentals. I think that I would say 80 to 90% of all real estate professionals, team leaders, they don't ever get to that point. And that's where it's the boring, methodical stuff that nobody wants to get to. That's where all the money is. And that leads me into mistake number 2 is kind of what we're talking about is you actually have not taken the time to write out your plan. Like you actually don't have a daily plan. You don't have a weekly plan. You don't have a monthly plan, a quarterly plan, and a yearly plan. And so people wake up in the morning and they say, okay, what am I going to do today? And then a million thoughts bounce in your head. And what used to be what's a functioning checklist turns into chaos throughout the day. And you end up in 42 different places. And then, you're lucky you hit some something positive throughout the day. And that's how I would say 80 to 90% of people function in our industry. And that's why the failure rate's so high. It's an organization thing. And analogy I want to give to the group is Steve Jobs did an awesome podcast that I listened to, or there's a podcast about Steve Jobs, and he talks about frequency and noise. And so Steve Jobs, whether you like him personally or not, obviously an amazing entrepreneur. But one of the things that he talks about is how much of the day are you turned into the frequency that you need to get the results that you're looking for versus the noise that distracts you but doesn't get you the result that you want. And he said, my superpower is I can be in frequency for almost all day. I've disciplined myself to stay in frequency all day. And yeah, you have noise that happens. There's some things that you can do. And that looks differently for everybody because sometimes you got to pay attention to the noise. You got to step out of frequency. But if you look at the most successful people that I know in sales, marketing, and real estate, growing teams, brokerages, they are in frequency, and like they know their mission. They're in frequency, and they surround themselves with people and develop people that develop the same skill set, and that duplicates out over and over and over again. So when I say put together a sales and marketing plan and follow the plan, it sounds so simple, but almost nobody does it. But the benefit of that is you tap into your superpower of being in frequency and focus. And it's impossible, I found, if you don't have a set plan, daily, weekly, quarterly, monthly that you're not fine tuning, it's almost impossible to stay in frequency because the email pops in, the customer service call happens. I know nobody here's listening has ever had that happen to them. Everyone's, this advice doesn't apply to any of us on this call, right? Or listening to us, but for all those other people out there, right? They need help with that. So that's mistake number 2. I don't know if anyone else have any thoughts on that before I go to mistake number 3.
My main thought, I think, is kind of the same concept as before, is you're talking to the right girls for frequency. Like, we get it, we understand it, we want it, right? But talk to the people who don't get that. Like, I even had a conversation with my assistant. I was like, the thing about the way that I work, while some people actually, they're like, that's a little scary, right? Like the way that you're working. And I was like, because the way that I work is just the means to get to where I want to be in the future. It's not to get it done today. It's to get it done 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And they're like, what? And I'm like, and that's what I'm in all of the time when I'm working, where opposed to someone who comes in, well, I just got to get this just to get the yeses or the transactions or whatever. But can you explain, just for a second, on what you mean by like staying in that frequency? Like, what might that look like?
Yeah, I think that what it looks like is you have a clear picture of what you want.
Yeah.
You have a clear picture of really what you want, and you've defined that, and therefore there's a strong why attached to it. And because of that, you're very motivated to get into frequency. Usually when that's not there, it's harder to stay into frequency. And then what the sales and marketing plan does is it removes the friction as you're trying to take action, and it allows you to move faster. Right. And then having tools like that, there's a whole bunch of AI tools, right? And using AI to help you move quicker within that sales and marketing plan is like adding fuel to the fire. And I'd like to do another segment on my top 12 AI tools.
Amen.
If you guys want to do that, maybe we could do that in another segment and just go through my top 12 AI tools that I use.
Absolutely.
But now that I have the sales and marketing plan in place, I think of every AI tool that I can use to make that part of the plan go faster. And literally, I would say our team, I used to operate with 7 marketers. I operate with 2 marketers.
Nice.
We used to have 7. The AI is doing the rest. And I've lowered my cost about 10 to 15 grand a month throughout my whole process. And we're getting double the amount done in less time. And I probably have 10 more hours back in my week to do what I want because of the plan and AI helping with the plan.
Yes, I love that.
We can go over the tools on how we kind of next week pull up the plan and then how we execute against the plan with the tools. So
love it. Good.
Awesome.
Sarah, do you have any thoughts around that you want to? I don't know.
She's frozen again, I think.
She's frozen. That's okay. We're here. We got this.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Third mistake, Isaiah. What is it?
So the third mistake is people, top producers, oftentimes they get to a point where they get really good with their consultation process or their sales process, and they do a good job of managing their sales pipeline, but they don't apply the same mindset or the same systems to their service and support pipeline. They don't have a service and support roadmap. And so their experience is shoddy. It's all over the place. One client will have a good experience. Another client will have an average experience. Every client thinks differently. They all have different priorities, concerns, and needs. And so if we don't actually have a plan to walk them down through or it's staged out, give them the plan. Here's the plan. Here's what we're going to go through together. These are the stages of the plan. So you know what to expect. And this is what we can make sure our relationship together runs well on with this plan. And then work through that roadmap, provides accountability on both sides, but produces more raving fans on the other side of it, which lead to testimonials. And in today's world, we live in and I hope everyone listen, if they haven't heard any other part of this podcast, we live in a trust economy, meaning trust is an all-time low, and the most valuable thing that you can have is trust. So in a trust economy, when people want things fast, they expect certain things, it's really, really important to make sure that that service and support plan is in place to get the testimonials. But here's the thing, because we are in a trust economy, people want to see success. They want to see your testimonials. They want to see your reviews. And we don't, and I'm not talking about getting a review and tucking it away. I'm talking about marketing the heck out of that review, promoting that review, telling the story, going live about that success story. That the whole, not the whole marketing plan, but a huge part of the marketing plan is based on you just saying, hey, here's 17 people that I've helped sell their home, and here's all my stories. And surrounding people in different ways with those stories. And let's say it's through posting, it's going live, telling the story, it's doing a paid ad surrounding your database. Well, guess what? When they're ready to sell, who do you think they're going to call? They're going to call with people that you've indoctrinated them with all of your success stories. You don't even have to sell yourself because your testimonials did it for you.
And I don't know if you would even consider this like if it matters or not, but something you had challenged me in the last couple of weeks to really hone in on those testimonials. And so I really did. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So I went for it. I got all these testimonials, but I think we're underestimating as a species, if you will, the power of positive words being said about what you have just done. It has been like there's always fuel in my fire. I got fuel for days, but when you listen to someone talk about how good of a job you did, when you're not, I'm not a words of affirmation person. I don't need that. And then when I was saying it, I was like, this is why I do it. I love this, it was so good. And I was able to even connect with my agents where other agents could connect with their clients. If they're not, doing agent attraction, connect with my agents. And I'm like, you guys, like you're breaking my heart in all the good ways. Like, this is so cool to watch. And they're like, no, you're amazing. And no, you're amazing. Like, I think that is something that, your brain might need, or my brain might need, without even realizing that, just to kind of push you to that next level as well.
100%. No matter how tough you are, you will, when you hear a success story and you help somebody, it just adds that much more fuel to the fire. It changes a culture. What I'm talking about changes a culture.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about. And that culture can be your community of buyers and sellers that you're building, or if you're doing agent attraction, listening to this, it changes the entire culture when people hear those stories. They talk about those stories. This is how we survived 1,000 years ago. It's embedded in our DNA to listen to stories and follow success as a survival mechanism. So if we're not using this as the number one benefit, the number one cornerstone of our marketing and our sales plan, we're missing out in a big way.
Yeah, I love that. Sarah, you're up, Buttercup. And so that was all of his good nuggets for the day. We stole all of Isaiah's time. Sarah, did you have any questions to end the podcast, if you will?
No, I am just so grateful that you were able to have the time to join us today and share all of this helpful insight. We are lucky enough to be able to connect with you every single week on our coaching mastermind calls, which are incredible. But yeah, this is really great for other agents to kind of get a little bit of a taste of what we get weekly. So thank you so much, Isaiah. I really appreciate you. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, you're welcome. And looking forward to going over some AI tools to help you with your marketing and your sales plan whenever you guys have
Absolutely.
Me. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You guys have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.